This was a lightning talk originally, which has been slightly expanded. So the good news is we're a little bit closer to lunch or to break. So we'll enjoy that. And I'm just gonna start timer here. All right, everyone, grab a seat. So I am here today to talk to you about the Blue Hats. And the Blue Hats is a new movement to this part of the planet. It is not new, but you'll hear more about that. But essentially, this is something we want everyone to become aware of, to tell your friends and neighbors and your colleagues about, that the public sector is maybe late to the free software party, but we're here. We are now finally getting mass awareness of free and open source software out into the world. So essentially, here's the TLDR of what we're going to talk about here over the next few minutes. We have a manifesto for our group. This has been translated from French, so pardon our translations, but it's really simple. We all believe in the three essential concepts here, and I imagine many of you will probably agree with us. A, that governments should actively contribute to free software to be good citizens. Two, digitization of public services should prioritize free software over the proprietary alternatives that are out there. And three, civil servants should be able to use free software on their own accord in their day-to-day work and promote it amongst their colleagues. So very simple idea. It's a very grassroots style initiative that we're going to talk about. For those of you I don't know, my name is Michael Downey. I work for a very large intergovernmental organization. You may have a clue in the photograph on the side. I'm here today in my personal and individual capacity and as one of these many Blue Hats advocates that are out there. But I have experience both in the government, public sector, and nonprofits, and the private sector, corporate IT, going back a long time. I've been involved with many different open source projects and leadership over the years. GNOME, F-Droid, ones you've probably heard about, things in the health sector. You can get me on Signal or on the Fediverse at the information there. But before we get too far, I mentioned this idea of public and civil servants, and not everyone has a clear grasp on this when we talk about it initially, but it's very wide. We open the doors wide here, and we say any type of government employee. This could be someone who delivers the letters to your house, someone who helps you, answers questions about your taxes, you name it. Anyone who is getting their paychecks from public money. This could be public school teachers in primary schools, secondary schools, universities, researchers. Researchers could work in universities. They could work in research labs. Basically, anyone who is on the public paycheck. And you see there's one of our many group gatherings. That one was in France several years ago. So it's very much a wide, inclusive type of organization that we've built. So taking a step back, I know a few of you were able to join us recently at my day job in New York City, where we gathered about 1,000 people together to talk about how free software can serve the public interest in many different ways, both in civil society and the public sector and governments, and even in the private sector. We don't leave them out either. But there are several things converging right now that are good to know just for the back of your mind and as you talk about software freedom. One, shouldn't surprise most of you, particularly in government, there's increasing pressure in many countries for more and more cost efficiency, doing more with less. And in the rich countries, it's about certain pressures on budgets. In poorer countries, it's about the fact that they're getting less foreign aid. They're getting fewer resources to do things. So both of those are coming in as pressure. There's increasing pressure both from the bottom up and from the outside in for what's been called usually digital sovereignty. For governments to take control of their own autonomy over their technical resources that they implement, not only in the public sector, but throughout the country. They don't want to be tied to foreign countries, to vendors from outside. They'd rather be able to do everything there locally to mitigate a lot of the risks that they see or perceive. There's increasing awareness, of technical staff, the people who are in roles that you or I might take on working in government, of the value of free software and the benefits of using it, and both from the efficiency standpoint, but the innovation standpoint, the ability to do things faster. And then finally, there's increasing political pressure from the top down and from outside forces, culminating late last year in the United Nations General Assembly passed something called the Global Digital Compact in 2024. And this this was essentially the act of all the countries, all the UN member states, which is almost all the countries in the world, getting together to agree on many things of the role of tech in the modern economy and the modern world. But one of the key things in this Global Digital Compact listed very clearly is that governments should leverage open source software to achieve their goals that they have agreed on to advance their economies and their societies. So that's really great news for us if they do it right. And the challenge that I think a lot of people are concerned about, if we're bringing more people to the free software community into the tent here, we don't want to create an amplification of the free rider effect. We don't want to create more and more stress on maintainers as a result of this. So there are a lot of us who are working very hard to try to ensure that this transition happens responsibly and thoughtfully, and that when governments do come to advocate for and implement free software in their institutions, that they do that in a way that builds up long-term sustainability goals for the projects and for their own investments. So this means co-investing in the software that they're deploying. This means being a truly productive community member in whatever form that makes sense. And I just wanted to give a shout out here to the Free Software Foundation in Europe, who have had a campaign for many years. Some of you have probably heard about it. It's this public money, public code. If you feel strongly about this, they have some really great resources that you can use to talk to people about and advocate for free software wherever tax money is going, or even in nonprofits and charities, where the money from the general public is going. The results of that, when it's tech work, ought to be released under free software licenses. So this is not new. I mentioned some things about France, and so we're in a transition mode right now of rolling out a worldwide rollout from France to the rest of the world now. So we've been doing things collectively as this initiative for several years. Over on the left, I know there's kind of small detail here, but we've had hackathons and workshops going back. I think this one was in 2018. So lots of groups happened in the French government, several hundred people involved in all areas of government. There have been talks at various events throughout Europe over the last few years. There are newsletters that go out. In fact, there was one that just went out yesterday. If you go to the website at the bottom of the screen there. Down here in the center, this was something that happened, it was the end of last year, I believe, or sometime last year, the Forgo project. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. It's a distributed Forge, basically something like GitLab, but that's more distributed like the Fediverse. So they had some people contributing to Forgo. So there are a lot of activities that are happening, again, mostly in France now, and we have a small but growing contingent in the US and the rest of Europe, into the Americas and beyond, even into Africa now. So lots of ways to get involved. If you think that this is something interesting or you want to pass along, you may want to take a snapshot of this or add it to your bookmarks or just add it to your memory banks. BlueHats.world, everything is listed here from the website anyway. But we've got a shared calendar of events that are relevant to people who are working in the public service in some way. We've got a fairly new Matrix room, a Mastodon account, a newsletter that's going out. This is our second edition of the new worldwide newsletter that we put out a few days ago, and we're on IRC as well, so you can find people just about anywhere now. And I wanted to take a moment, and you'll see I crossed out the Blue Hats because this is not Blue Hats, but this is something that's also quite related and I think quite interesting if you're interested in this topic, and that is that officially, what governments are doing with free software is also quite promising. There's a new movement that's growing very rapidly about rolling out open source program offices as a concept, adapting what's been done in the private sector, what's been done in academia to a growing extent, into the public sector as well. And so many of us who are involved with the Blue Hats, primarily launched by my colleague Bastien Guéry, who is the head of the OSPO for the French government. We've also created this thing called the Public Sector OSPO Network, and this is a way for people who are running these offices or these teams or sometimes groups of one in some countries or some governments, but a way for them to connect to each other and share information about their counterparts and become aware of who else is doing similar work that they can build a community upon. We created something called an OSPO Meta YAML file that people can put in their repos. So we've got a structure here that we're going to start refining over time to capture all the relevant details about the countries and the governments who are involved here, and then will be surfaced on that website. So we've got a few submissions already. I think we're up to about 10 or 15 so far, and we're actively, trying to solicit more and get a more comprehensive list. And we've just set up a forum as well for this group. So the TLDR, in addition to that manifesto, is that lots of things are happening in governments, in the public sector world with free software. If you consider yourself a public servant of some way, if you work or get money from the government in some way, please feel free to join our little unofficial group. If you know someone who is, feel free to tell them about this and let them know. Spread the word. We're a small group when it comes to the whole global scheme of things, but we find power in networking with each other. And again, something I think everybody can get behind, right? Government should contribute to free software. Public services, when they're digitized, should promote and prioritize free software. And then we as civil servants, we should be able to use free software in our daily work on our personal laptops. Here I'm running Debian, and really just be free to use the software that empowers them to do what they would like to do. So wrap up, if you're a public service, please join us. We have some stickers and pins in the very back row. Please grab one. Grab one for your friends or your colleagues if you think someone might be interested. Get a blue hat. It can be any blue hat. We don't discriminate with hat styles. It doesn't have to be a fedora. I have a few different blue hats depending on the occasion. And then if you're, whichever group you're in, just tell everyone else about both the blue hats and spread the word that, your friends in government are here, and they're here to be good free software citizens, right? I think most of the people that we talk to fundamentally understand the value of investing time and energy and hopefully some money into these relationships and building it for the long term. Everybody understands the challenges, and they understand, surprisingly, and it resonates much more than just the traditional open source definition talk. But when we talk about the 4 freedoms, and we talk about what free software offers them to build up their communities with the latest technology to help their neighbors, to help their communities to work with others in their part of the world, across the world, that's very compelling to them. And they really see a vision for how this can help them achieve their goals. And so it's a great time to be at this nexus between public service and free software. So help us spread the word about the blue hats. And I've got a few minutes before the break. If anyone has any questions about either the blue hats or anything happening in this space, happy to attempt an answer. Yes, in the back. Yeah. It did not. It was somewhat of an arbitrary choice by our colleagues in France. They wanted something, obviously Red Hat was taken. And I'm not sure about how Fedora feels about this. We haven't formally asked them for permission here. But nevertheless, yeah, this was something that started as kind of like an in joke and just kind of stuck around. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of how the blue hat movement is going in the U.S. and across both the state and federal governments, given all the changes that are happening?
Yeah, well, it's a challenging time in the U.S. As an international civil servant, I don't take a public opinion on any specific country's political situations, but we can look at the numbers, and we've seen a lot of people who are working in or around free software for the U.S. government are no longer working for the U.S. government right now. So it's a challenging time right there. We do have, both in the Blue Hats and in the FOSS PSO network site, the one solid U.S. government OSPO, which is in the Center for Medicaid Services, is listed there, and our colleague Remy DeCosmaker, who some of you probably know from Fedora and other places, leads that group and is quite an active participant. What we're really excited about as the word spreads are these kind of lone people who are out there diligently advocating for free software in their daily work. We often call them OSPOs of one, right? And we're trying to reach them, and we're trying to slowly spread the word through events like this and getting the word out, again, so they don't feel like they have to go it alone, to share resources with each other, to share events, to share opportunities with them. So the road ahead is long, but if we look, and you can feel free to search for Blue Hats France, and you're going to see several different events that they've done very regularly over time. So if we can match what our colleagues in France have done in other countries, it's going to be really exciting. Any other questions? Yeah, on the very back.
So I saw that you mentioned the public code, public money movement, I guess is what it's called. So it's the Free Software Foundation of Europe. Are you in like a working relationship with them to like exchange ideas and also pay for this stuff as well?
There's nothing official joining the Blue Hats with the FSFE and the Public Money Public Code initiative. They kind of stand alone, but they're very well coordinated in terms of philosophy and mission. And I know for a fact that people who are in the Blue Hats are often sharing that information with their colleagues in other places within government. The FSFE has put out a lot of good resources and kind of white papers and a little bit of research that can be used to help advocate for free software in different parts of the world. So nothing official in terms of partnerships yet. I think this is still something that's alive and well within the FSFE, although they have a lot going on, especially nowadays with all of the law and policy that's happening. But it's still very much on their mind, and it's very much a valuable resource that we want to keep promoting and keep visibility on. I think there was one in front. Yeah.
So, are there any avenues that you can quickly identify, of course, that concerned citizens or, like from any standpoint, like people who are not currently employees of the government can do to help increase awareness of the like freedom
Yeah, I think the question around what everyday people can do at a small scale to help advocate for free software in government. One of the neglected areas that personally I'd like to see more involvement in is at city level governments, particularly in countries like the U.S. where the cities are very strong. They are usually people who are out there advocating for this are open. Sometimes they're under open data. There's someone here who actually expected to see here, but someone here in the city of Portland who works on open data and open source as their full-time job. But these are the people who you can try to search out and see if you have someone in your community already like that, and see if there are events or things that you can either bring to their attention, because often these are like a single people, right? And there's only so much they can keep track of. And I've always known these folks to be very receptive to input, to feedback. And then, it's kind of a trite, but writing your local representative, even at the city level, telling them that, hey, I know we just spent, this much money on software, or I read in the news, right? And were you aware that there are ways to lower those costs overall, and to build something that we have more autonomy over, and more flexibility over, and you can kind of advertise for that. The FSFE under the Public Money Public Code site also has some good resources for that type of individual level advocacy that you can check out. Yeah. In the front.
From an application standpoint, or where to like put a bunch of resources, that movement in kind of libraries. I'm wondering, is that like a focus?
Yes and no. It's a focus. The more mature a government is, and the more mature they have maybe this OSPO organization set up, then they have the staff and the resources and the time to more accurately map out the entire dependency stack of what they're using and what they need to be supporting. I think the challenge is going to be it's going to take a while to get down that road. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Public libraries. Yes, sorry. Okay, yes. Yes and yes. Yeah, and so public libraries, again, kind of at the local level here, are very often advocates for open access, and they understand these concepts quite deeply, and often are spending a lot of their budgets on software contracts. Most public libraries, my understanding personally, maybe I'm wrong, have like community boards you can try to run for, and you actually help to advocate for specific policies and move things forward with specific ideas. I am a huge library fan. We have a wonderful one down the street here from us here in Portland. But yeah, it's absolutely a great way to, again, start small, but something that really affects people in a meaningful way, because libraries, from what I'm reading anyway, are only going to be continued to be strapped for cash and resources. So whatever we can do to deploy more resources for people in our local neighborhoods, the better. And what we often tell people in workshops with government colleagues is that most of the people who are everyday government employees didn't get into this for, big power or big paychecks. They got into it because they wanted to help, people in their local communities in some way. And whatever level of government they are, if we can convince them of the values of free software being the technology of our time, the tools of our time to apply to the problems of our time, if we have a clear path forward and we have a way for them to do more with the fewer resources that they have, they start getting really excited, and they are hungry for more resources and more ideas. And so folks there at your local library are going to be just as hungry for those ideas, typically. Whether or not those get implemented, obviously it's an uphill battle. But if we can sneak our way into some of the governance of those groups, like the local libraries, like our city council, et cetera. I know of one person here at this event who was quite determined to run for the Portland City Council and advocate for free software as their platform. It didn't happen this next time or this last time, but maybe the next election. Yeah, in the back.
Sometimes just showing up to a meeting can make a big difference. In this very room, some years ago, I was seeing a presentation from our local bus transportation meetup. I think it was bicycling infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember. But I asked if they were contributing their map data to other cities who were trying to do the same thing with the street maps. And it turns out that our TriMet bus system had a small proprietary and expensive mapping service that they were stuck with. But as soon as they were done with that, they took that suggestion that came out of that room and it's now all open street maps. So don't be able to find your local bus here. Nothing's not a word.
Yeah, absolutely. Portland has done a great job at this, and like the case is with many cities, often open data is a backdoor into free software conversations, because it's that same ethos of being able to more quickly and be more agile with services that they can deploy. And so, yeah, I think people are starting to get the idea that innovation in the public sector, the key to doing that is embracing free software, embracing open data, embracing the commons collectively, and resources like OpenStreetMap and these other invaluable resources that are already out there. I think we got maybe one time for one more question before the break. In the very back.
I just want to make sure someone else can ask because I already asked one.
You're good. Go ahead.
Do you have any good suggestions or strategies to break down barriers of why they might want to continue using proprietary contracts? Because a lot of arguments I've heard were when I advocate for not necessarily public sector, but for within my previous organizations, is that the free software stuff, that's just hobby software, it's not good quality, or if I pay for this money, then I get technical support and dedicated support. How do we break down those barriers so that I can rationalize why paying so much money for these things
Right.
is good for them in their minds?
So challenges in public sector and governments adopting free software over proprietary alternatives. The tide is changing, and it's changing rapidly. Less in the U.S. Compared to the rest of the world, from what I've seen. But I can tell you that I talk with a lot of countries, and there's not one who isn't extremely eager to get off their cloud-based proprietary stacks that they're using in their own government institutions, as long as they can find a viable alternative. And to the point that you raised, they can find a reasonable way to provide support. And so there are multiple ways to do that. We try to identify ways to provide that support and implementation service through local or regional providers, again, to reinforce that idea of digital sovereignty that's so high on people's radar right now. And another way, especially for poorer countries, for the global majority countries out there, we see free software as a way to develop local tech ecosystems and economic opportunities over the long run, right? Maybe not overnight, but we have plans in place, and there are programs that are just getting started to help develop those partnerships between governments and universities for training and education, and the private sector and the civil society groups to help reinvent the economies, particularly in poorer countries, that they can start start a software tech ecosystem and do some economic development as part of this digital transformation that they're undergoing. So they realize that that's not really possible with proprietary software because they've been burned in many cases, through these contracts, through these vendors who are always overseas and very difficult to deal with. So people are very hungry for this, and they just need a clear path forward, and they need a path that looks reliable and trustworthy. Right? What they don't want, because usually these people are report up through politicians, right? They don't want a failure. They don't want to have to take the risk here and point to something that was a complete flop. So we have to make sure that we do this thoughtfully and we have all of the pieces in place. But in the free and open source software world, we kind of know how to do that, right? We've built these tech economies up around free software. We have even large corporations, have figured out how to use free software to collaborate with their competitors, right? With the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsofts have figured out how they can collaborate collectively despite the competitive stance with each other. So there's a lot of opportunity there that we just now need to translate a lot of these ideas from the private sector or academia in some cases into the public sector. And so that's where we're at. People are really hungry for it, and it's going to be an exciting few years. It's going to be a struggle for a few years with the budget crises so many are facing, but we think that's going to be all the more important reason for free software to have a strong voice in the years ahead. So thanks, everyone. We're over time for our break, so scurry out, get your caffeine before the next session starts. Thank you. Feel free to grab a blue hat, pen, or badge in the back.